Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks for joining me today. I'm here with the second round of a Modern Friendly League. I won the die roll, so I'll be on the play. Let's have a look at the opening hand. This is super slow. We're not going to even cast a creature until turn 3. Dismember probably not going to do enough to make this hand keepable, so unfortunately I have to mulligan this one. Alright, well, this is a keep. It's still pretty slow, but we got Spreading Seas and a Scry. So, I kept, and I'm going to put that on the bottom of the deck. If we were on the draw, we would keep it on the top, so we'd have a turn 1 play. As it stands, we have no turn 1 play, but we do have a turn 2 play, so Cursecatcher just a little bit clunky here. We'd much rather draw into 2 drops than 1 drops right now. So we'll start with an island and pass the turn. Razorverge Thicket into Slippery Bogle. Alright, so this is one of our hardest matchups. None of our removal works against these guys. I was happy to see the Silvergill Adept though, but these guys don't run a lot of lands, and their most powerful aura spell, Daybreak Coronet, requires 2 white. So I'm hoping that by casting Spreading Seas we can slow them down substantially this game. So this guy, the Purple Cow 777, and I had a lot of fun chatting this game. It was nice to see a light-hearted opponent for once. Everybody on Magic Online is such a try-hard. Like, nobody's ever kind. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. There's plenty of people. But I've also gotten just way too many rage quitters and things like that. You know, like when you go to a paper tournament and the person across from you is actually pleasant, it just makes the experience so much more enjoyable. So the opponent plays Hyena Umbra, one of these totem armor enchantments. So +1/+1 and First Strike makes it very hard to interact with because First Strike can deal with our creatures pretty effectively. AEther Vial and Silvergill Adept this turn. Revealing Reejerey probably because that guy's probably going to come out next. Just crossing our fingers, hoping the opponent doesn't have another land. We did hit another land, which is great because we can play one of these Masters of Waves if we choose to. So there's another land. Just hoping he doesn't have Daybreak Coronet. And he does. So you can see the reason for playing the Spreading Seas was to keep him off the double white. I think that Bogle actually plays fewer lands than Merfolk tends to. Well, maybe about the same, something like 19. Maybe they even play 18, I'm not sure. But all of their deck is 1 and 2 drops. They don't have 4 drops, so it kind of makes sense for them to have fewer lands. So this thing is broken. It says enchant creature with another aura attached to it, and then they get +3/+3, First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. Makes it really, really hard to race. So this guy's now a 5/5 First Strike, Lifelink, Vigilance. And he gets to use the Spreading Seas mana over here to cast another Slippery Bogle. So he's getting in with Vigilance here. I'm not blocking yet, so I'm going to take 5 and go down to 13. AEther Vial's going to tick up. Silvergill Adept, an interesting draw, but with AEther Vial ticking up, we'll be able to get that onto the battlefield next turn, and with Spreading Seas, we can get Master of Waves out right now with a bunch of tokens. Generate some chump blockers for this Slippery Bogle. So the deck does play Spirit Mantle, which gives the enchanted creature protection from creatures, so it makes it unblockable. But we can't play around that. So we just put as many creatures out as we can. Hopefully we'll draw some Island Walk. Okay, so open the Armory. This is one I hadn't seen in this deck yet. Search your library for an aura or an equipping card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So, let's see. What is the revealed card here? So there's the Spirit Mantle, protection from creatures, and +1/+1. If he has another land, he can cast it this turn, but it looks like he doesn't, so he just plays another creature out. Alright, so no protection from creatures yet. We can still block here, so I'm going to throw an Elemental away, keep my life total as high as possible. We do know the opponent has the Spirit Mantle in hand. This guy's going to become a 6/6 unblockable lifelinker. So at 13, we've still got, hopefully, 3 attacks that we can live through. No, sorry, 2 that we can live through. The third one would be lethal. Aether Vial takes up. Now, Kira's pretty useless in this spot. We can start by Aether Vialing in Silvergill Adept and see what we draw. Oh, well, Island Walk is really interesting. I was all set to cast Master of Waves. If we do the math, Master of Waves would bring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more tokens. I have 7 tokens, and they'd all be 3/2s. But if we don't get to attack this turn, the opponent's going to play Spirit Mantle and just start racing us, right? They're going to be 6/6, attacking us down to 7, and if we won't be able to attack because we don't have Island Walk right now. We will get a ton of elementals, but this guy's got Vigilant, so he's going to be able to block our elementals on the crackback and just gain more life. We will have 7 of them altogether. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 3/2s, but he can block, gain 6. Then there's 6 of them left. 18. Yeah, I don't think we can race that way. So in the end, I decided it was going to be best to play the Master of the Pearl Trident, swing with Mutavault, Silvergill, and Master of Waves unblockable for 10, I think it is. He'll go down to 16. Probably go back up to 22 next turn, but then we can play out our second Master of Waves and, I don't know, pump our Mutavault, hopefully do something. Maybe you draw another Island Walk Lord or something. So the opponent going with another Daybreak Coronet. His creature's going to get bigger and gain more life, but not unblockable. So we get to keep our life total up. I felt super good when he made that play because the damage that we're swinging for is going to just be going crazy. Once we get this Reejerey out, we're going to be swinging for enormous chunks of damage with lifelink. Well, sorry, not with lifelink, with Island Walk. So as long as our life total is staying safe, I feel pretty comfortable. Okay, another Slippery Bogle. Now, I guess we can think about if he played the Spirit Mantle, right? He would have hit me down to 7. He would have gained 6 life going up to 22. Next turn, I could have played out the Reejerey, and assuming I drew nothing else, that was great. Either play the Master of Waves and just get in with some of these guys, or let's see. Yeah, if I just attack the same way, Mutavault was, if it didn't attack with Mutavault, it would be 4, 4, 4, it's 12, he'd be at 22. I don't think there'd be any way for us to get to lethal next turn. Anyhow, I still think Spirit Mantle was the way to go in this spot. You guys can let me know what you think, but as I mentioned, I was very happy to see the Daybreak Coronet because it lets me keep blocking with my elementals. One of the advantages that an experienced Merfolk pilot has against Bogles is that, you know, not to be condescending or rude, but Bogle seems to be like the simplest deck in Modern to play, so going off of that, it's a deck that attracts a lot of newer players. It's really hard to interact with and can just get a ton of free wins. So it's a fun deck for newer players to Modern to play, but somebody who has experience piloting a deck like Merfolk is going to have much more experience with combat math. If Slippery Bogle is just attacking with Spirit Mantle all the time, this pilot isn't getting a ton of experience figuring out the ins and outs of complicated combat steps. So I realized, you know, I want to protect my life total as much as possible. Just throw an elemental under the bus. For my turn, I'm definitely taking Aether Vial up. So we drew a land, which is actually pretty cool here. I can play it, reveal Reejerey, and then play the Reejerey with Aether Vial. Then with 5 lands, I can cast the Master of Waves, untap a land, and still activate Mutavault. So generating a ton of tokens, extra now that I have the Master of Pearl Trident from last turn. Reejerey is going to untap the Mutavault so it can attack. And this guy's going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 3/2s. So things are getting a little bit out of hand here. I can activate the Mutavault, who's now going to be a 6/6, getting buffed by 3. Let's see. No, 2 Merfolk Lords and 2 Elemental Lords. So how much damage are we getting in for? 6 plus 4 is 10, 14, 18. 18 damage this turn. So again, if the opponent had gotten in with Spirit Mantle last turn instead of the Daybreak Coronet, they would have been unblocked, and I would have gone down to 7. He would have gone up only to 22, and I'm swinging again for 10 plus 4 is 18. So not lethal here, although no, I can't attack with these elementals yet, and he's got this blocker up for this elemental. Can't attack with the Island Walk Lord because he doesn't have Island Walk himself. So just 18. If I was at 7 right now from the Spirit Mantle attack, the opponent could then next turn have played the second Daybreak Coronet and gotten in for 9 unblockable and would have won. So it was just, you know, just a misplay by the opponent. Poor sequencing. Definitely should have played the Spirit Mantle last turn. So they play and cycle a Horizon Canopy. And here is the Spirit Mantle finally, getting in for 9. Spirit Mantle makes him unblockable, so I have nothing to do. But with 4 life left, I've got way more than overkill. As we saw, I swung for 18 last turn, but now I can swing for 1,000,000 if I want to. With Island Walk alone, I have 10, 18, plus 7 more, so 25. On top of the 27 that I have with elementals. So the cards don't always determine the outcome. The opponent should have had the win, but a lot of times the nuances, you know, depend on the skill of the pilot, and we were able to get there this game. So stole 1 away from Bogles. I'm going to close this window now. If you guys don't want to see the result of the match, please look away for a second. Okay, I'm back. Going into game 2, the opponent will be on the play, which against Bogles is extremely scary. This is an excellent hand. We can potentially negate something like Daybreak Coronet or Spirit Mantle. Opponent kept 7, which makes me feel pretty bad. Horizon Canopy brings him down to 19. We drew Mutavault. Not the best, but we don't have a lot of interaction against Bogles. Really, from out of my sideboard, I just have the... well, Seize Claims are really good because, as I mentioned, they don't run a lot of lands. So I bring in 3 Seize Claims and 3 Negates. I take out the Harbingers because they can't do anything, and I take out my Dismembers. So pretty easy sideboarding plan. Okay, so Seal of Primordium is an enchantment, sits on the board, and he can sacrifice it at any moment to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. I guess he's thinking he's going to get rid of Spreading Seas or potentially an Aether Vial. Super slow, though, from the opponent. No auras yet, and he's just going to get in for 1. Starting to think that I might have a chance here. So I drew another land, but I've got plenty of gas in hand. It's just going to take time to develop it. Now, I have a choice here whether I leave up Negate in the event that he goes something like Land, Hyena Umbra, Daybreak Coronet. But in that case, we're not developing at all. We saw a Seal of Primordium, so we have to hope that he's got some slow stuff in his hand, and that we need to establish a clock ourselves. Silvergill Adept will draw us a card, give us more options. Well, it's nice to see a Lord, but Bogles is just so fast. So here is an Ethereal Armor. We're hoping not to see a land. There is no land, but there is a Rancor, so now we are dealing with a 6/4 Trample First Strike all of a sudden. That is a super fast clock, and I have to feel that the opponent has more in his hand, given the fact that he kept his 7. Aether Vial's pretty poor, but as I mentioned, we have more than enough to do with the cards in our hands as it stands. Harbinger would typically be excellent in a situation like this, but Bogles only runs hexproof creatures, so would be useless. That's why we take him out. So now, I mean, we don't have a lot of good choices. We can leave up Negate, but again, if he has it... If he has it, we're still just dealing with a 6/4 Trample First Strike, right? We can counter his Daybreak Coronet, but then we're going to take another 6. We'll play an Aether Vial this turn. The clock is just so fast that I think we have to try to race it ourselves. Get some blockers, get our toughness up? I don't know. I just, at this point, honestly, I feel relatively helpless. Actually, the choice to play out the Lord of Atlantis was heavily based on the fact that I had a Master of Waves in hand, and if I play him next turn and the opponent doesn't have anything too crazy next turn, I can suddenly have an increased board presence and potentially just kill the Glade Cover Scout or threaten to in combat, because there are no Totem Armor enchantments yet, just Rancor and Ethereal Armor. So if this guy were to take lethal damage in combat, it would actually die. So getting Lord of Atlantis out on the board gives us the potential to make a lot of tokens next turn. But tapping for 2 white, Daybreak Coronet, saw that one coming. We're now dealing with a 10-8 First Strike, Lifelink, Trample, Vigilance. Not much we can do. If we play our Master of Waves, we're going to get 4 tokens. I'm going to do that anyway. Like, I can do the math, but I might as well just put him out onto the board and do the math with that, the visualization of actually looking at him and his tokens. So now we've got the toughness is what we're looking for against Trample, right? So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 toughness. But he's got 10 power. Even if he has nothing else in his hand, the 10 power with First Strike would wipe our board. We would take no damage, but our board would get wiped. There's really nothing I can draw into once he's got this crazy guy on the board that would help us, especially after losing a massive board presence. So I think at this point, I pretty much had to scoop, and I did. I told the opponent going into that game that I fully expected to lose. I'm sorry, I went into the replay window without warning you guys, so please look in a different direction. Alright, game 3. I'm definitely going to play first. Let's see the opening hand. Against Bogles on the draw, this would probably be a keep just because it's a high variance. I don't want to say, what do I want to say? It is a very difficult matchup for us. So high variance hands like this one that can pay off in a huge way are usually going to be keeps. Like against Elves, for example, if we're on the draw, we might keep this just because we could hit a land, Silvergill Adept could draw us into a Dismember against Elves, or against Bogles, it could draw us into Seize Claims or whatever. Of course, the hand could just fizzle and we'll draw no lands and go nowhere. That's all a bit moot, though. In this case, since I'm on the play, I absolutely cannot keep this hand. We'll only have our next draw step to hit land and potentially whiff. Yeah, so I have to throw it away. I think this is a keep in this matchup. I mean, Mutavault is a creature. We don't have to worry about things getting countered, but at least this is a blue source. Again, this hand suffers from being on the play because we really want a chance to draw into Merfolk by our second turn to actually be able to cast Silvergill Adept. So it's a keep, and the Scry will help us get closer to Merfolk. The opponent mulliganed also makes me feel a little bit better. That island has to go. I've already got 4 lands in hand. Now, you guys might have mulliganed this hand. But the Silvergill Adept is strong if I draw another Merfolk, and Negate is obviously one of my few trumps in the matchup. So just play a Wanderwine Hub tapped. Doesn't really matter which land I have. He's just going to play a creature on his first turn anyway. Horizon Canopy into Slippery Bogle, and I drew another land. That's absolutely terrible because I can't cast a Silvergill Adept. Okay, opponent plays another land. Hopefully they just have a handful of lands, but they do have a Rancor. I have the mana up, so I'm going to use this Negate now. I need to gain some time, and if this guy just starts strapping this guy up with Rancor and some follow-up, I mean, if I starting to get hit for like 5 every turn, I'm not going to last very long. And Rancor can also go back to his hand in the event that I do somehow deal with a Slippery Bogle, so chose to counter the Rancor. Does get Hyena Umbra on here, though, but he's still only attacking for 2. I can deal with 2 for a little while. I drew a Cursecatcher, which was a huge sigh of relief from me because not only can I cast my Silvergill Adept, but I can also follow up with a Cursecatcher. Silvergill Adept drew me a Reejerey, which I was also happy to see because I need to develop a board presence, and hopefully this guy doesn't have the nut hand over there again. Temple Garden tapped. That's a good sign. But 2 mana, oh, for Stony Silence. Wow. So yeah, Stony Silence comes in specifically for AEther Vial. It is a really rookie move to bring in Stony Silence against Merfolk. A lot of times we take out our AEther Vials, a lot of times we don't even draw them, and AEther Vial's not killing them, you know? Our creatures are, so it just seems like a dead card. Yeah, so anyhow, I guess that, anyhow, Stony Silence. Can't say I am unhappy to see that. So with First Strike, this guy can still swing. If I blocked, he would just eat my 2 guys. Drew a Mutavault, which is decent because I can play the Reejerey and then have 2 more creatures the following turn to attack with. As long as this guy stays tiny for the time being. But now we're sitting with 2 cards against, 2 lands against whatever 2 cards the opponent has in hand. He can also cycle his Horizon Canopy. Okay, we get to swing back at the opponent for 5 with the Reejerey on the board. Threatening a lot of power next turn if we activate these Mutavaults, actually. Snow-covered forest, opponent left with 2 cards in hand. Taps for green, cycles the Horizon Canopy. And follows up with a Silhana Ledgewalker. So we're getting really lucky with the opponent's draws on his mulligan to 6. Our mulligan was pretty poor, and it looks like his wasn't that great either. The Negate actually did help us quite a lot. If we didn't have it or didn't use it, he would be getting in each turn, or he'd have a 4/2 First Striker. So he could still be attacking us or be doing more to prevent our attacks. Okay, that Negate made me super happy because now if he does top deck some bomb, like Daybreak Coronet or Spirit Mantle or something like that, that just might change the sort of direction of the game. I do have backup now with Negate. So the opponent still just has a 2/2 First Strike. Mutavaults are 3/3, so pretty easy just to activate one of these Mutavaults and swing for 3. The opponent can either take the 3 or chump with his Silhana Ledgewalker. That's probably a good call, I guess. Basically acting as a fog in this case. Wasn't doing anything anyway. The opponent already has his hexproof creature. So I'll just play my Cavern of Souls as an untapped land and pass the turn. I could have played the Wanderwine Hub, didn't really matter, the sequencing there. Okay, opponent is drawing lands and Slippery Bogles. So I'm starting to feel a little bit bad for the opponent's draws here. Does have a Rancor, going down to 0 cards in hand. Has a 4/2 First Striker up now, choosing not to attack. Hopefully, I guess he's thinking about keeping me back from attacking. Cursecatcher is great to see as another body. So what I can do here is play out the land, play Cursecatcher, untap a land, activate both Mutavaults if I want to, and still leave up 2 mana for Negate next turn. The opponent does have a 4/2 First Striker, which is going to eat one of our creatures, but he's at 12 life, and we've got a lot of pressure here. So if I activate both Mutavaults and swing with everybody, he would eat a Mutavault or a Silvergill Adept. He could chump another one, but then he'd still be taking 5. I'd only lose 1 creature and would still have a ton of pressure next turn as well. So I'm playing out another Cursecatcher this turn anyway. I think it's definitely time to turn the screw, to press our advantage here. So we'll go ahead and cast Cursecatcher, untap the land, exactly as I was saying. We're going to activate both Mutavaults and leave up 2 mana for Negate. Swing with everybody we can, except obviously not the Reejerey. That would be a big mistake, because if I attack with the Reejerey, he could block with the Slippery Bogle, and then with First Strike would take the Reejerey out. All my creatures before damage would get reduced in power. If he wanted to, he could also then trade the Slippery Bogle for either the Cursecatcher or the Silvergill, probably the Silvergill, in which case the opponent would only take 5. And I'd lose a Reejerey and a Silvergill Adept. So, prudent to not attack with the Lord here. That could die to the First Strike damage. Okay, opponent is choosing to chump the extra Mutavault. It does eat one of the Mutavaults with his First Striker, and takes 5 going down to 7. Cracks his fetch land going down to 6. I think the opponent told me like capital letters WoW here, because he drew the Daybreak Coronet, which gives, importantly, Vigilance on top of lifelink and a buff, because if he attacks now, he's going to gain 7 life, and then if I attack back, it would be really poor, because unlike last turn where I didn't care about losing a creature, I do care about him being able to gain 7 life each turn. So just sensational that I have this Negate in my hand. The opponent got super close. Instead, he just has to pass the turn. And it looks like we got there. I'm going to activate the Mutavault, do the same attack that I did last turn. In this case, it doesn't matter if I swing with the Reejerey, because if he blocks him, all my creatures will go down to 2, 2, 1, and 1, which still adds up to 6. As it stands, if I attack with everybody other than the Reejerey, he'll block the Mutavault and still take 3, 2, and 2 for 7. So either way, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to just attack with everybody except the Reejerey. The opponent has no cards in hand, no options, and at this point, it just blocks the Mutavault and is going to take 7 and go down to -1. So anyhow, experience was the determining factor, I think, in that match. The opponent should have won the first game when he poorly sequenced his Spirit Mantle and Daybreak Coronet. Yeah, I always feel good when I beat Bogles because I don't have a ton of tech against them, and it's just a really hard deck to interact with. So please let me know your thoughts. Subscribe if you have not already, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye.